Well, hello everybody. How you guys doing? Hope you guys are having a fantastic Wednesday. Thank you for hopping on. Today we're going to be talking about your children and depression. If you have a depressed teen, how to deal with your depressed teen. If you've tried stuff, if you tried talking to him and you haven't been able to get to him, nothing has worked, well, maybe you can try this and this will help. Okay, so today we are going to talk about the 5 things that are causing teenage depression. Because if you have a depressed teen at home, just know that you're not alone. I love statistics, but I'm not going to really talk a lot about statistics today. But from the studies, these are the 5 things that are causing major teenage depression today because over 70% of American teens are on some form of prescribed medication. So know that if you are experiencing anything like this at home, that you're not alone and that it is something that is happening to a lot of people, not only in America, but worldwide. And that's a good thing in the sense that they've done studies and that there are things that you can do. So this is the research. These are the 5 things that are causing teen depression. We're going to start with the first one that we already know because we've been teenagers, okay? And that is teenage depression, teenage puberty, and what you go through when you are in your teens. And for those of you who haven't done so already, just go to the post in the comments and just hit like so that you can comment and say hello and talk to me in this broadcast. So you have to accept the StreamYard invitation. It's right there on the comments, and that way we can have a conversation and you can ask me questions if you want when it's time to answer the questions, okay? So let's talk about that. I mean, you remember when you were a teen, right? Well, now, thanks to science, we know what's going on in the teenage body. Okay, everything from hormonal to developmental changes, and all of these changes, the chemical changes that they're having in their body, causes an overwhelming of emotions. And you know, being so young, they don't have the skills that we have as adults. They do not have the emotional control. They haven't learned how to regulate their emotions yet. So what do? They get depressed or they scream and yell because they haven't learned how else to deal with their emotions. And that is why it is our job as adults to show them how to manage their emotions. So that's the first thing that happens. I'm not going to go too deep into the 5 things because I really want to concentrate more on the solutions, on what you can do to help your teen. So that's the first thing. And remember, you can always do a little bit of research on these 5 things, or if you want, you can contact me and I will send you the information that I have on all of these topics, okay? So now let's go on to the second thing. Now, the second thing is the brain and the neuroscience. Now we finally know what's going on in our body at every stage and cycle of life. So cycles of life frequent every 7 years, more or less. So now we're dealing with the teenage years and the brain is in a completely different stage. So let's talk about where the brain is at in your teens. Let's begin with the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, this is the newest part of the brain, right? This is the part of the brain that takes the longest to develop. This part of the brain does not develop till the age of 25. So imagine that. Now, this is a part of the brain that is responsible for reasoning, for decision making, for impulse control. Everything that has to do with logic is the prefrontal cortex, but it's the last part of our brain to develop. So what develops first? The limbic system, which is the reptilian, the ancient part of the brain. So imagine this, the emotional brain, the limbic system, is the part that develops first. So in your teens, your prefrontal cortex, the part that is responsible for making decisions, isn't developed, but yet your limbic brain is growing. So this is why they have that emotional overwhelm. This is why they have the problems with communication. And it's also very important to note that in your teenage years, you're going through what's called the pruning process. So when you're born, your brain is born with trillions of cells, 3 times more than the adult brain. What happens is it starts shedding in your teenage years. You start literally losing brain cells. So when you're young, you create brain cells through, for example, learning. So you learn to ride a bike, you create a neural pathway that becomes a connection, right? So you learn a new language, you learn how to play an instrument. Everything that you learn goes strengthening these neural pathways, right? These neural pathways that you don't use. And there's one for everything, for singing, for dancing, for mathematics, for problem solving, for chess, for everything. You can create your own pathway. So when you don't create these pathways, when you don't strengthen them, they die. They start dying off in your teens. So the problem is that you're losing all these connections while you're feeling all these emotions. So try to understand this now that we know the science. This is why your teen acts crazy sometimes. He's not trying to be difficult. He simply doesn't understand what's going on with his body himself. So maybe if you have a family meeting, you could actually sit with your teen and explain all these things to him. And you guys could research it together, because you know what? Knowledge is power. I wish I would have known these things in my teens. I wish I would have known these things even in my 20s, because I would have handled my situations differently. If you know what's going on with you, if you're feeling a certain way, if you feel out of control, okay, if you feel out of control and you don't know what's going on, then you don't know how to fix it. Well, that is a big source of stress and anxiety. Now, when you know what's going on and you research it and you see solutions on how to fix it, well, now you have control. Now that changes everything. Right there, from the knowledge, your anxiety decreases, because I learned this. I went through all these steps myself later in life. So I didn't have the emotional control myself either. I was the type of person that would literally, it would be like I would jump into something, or I could not say or have a discussion at all because I didn't know how to handle my emotions. So I would just avoid everything. Okay, so we want to help our children handle their emotions and know how to have dialogues, know how to express themselves, and how to deal with what's going on. Okay, so let's continue now. We're going to skip on to the third thing that is going on with them. Okay, and now that is, we all know this, and this is something that, you know, I didn't have back then, and I can't even imagine. So now imagine that you're going through your pruning process. You got everything going on in your brain hormonally. You're going through puberty, right? Now you know what's going on in your brain neurologically. You know all the experiences, all the new emotions that you're going through. It's the first time that you're having relationships. It's the first time that you're going to have feelings for people. It's the first time you're going to feel rejection. So there's so much going on. You know this because you've been through it. We've all been through it, right? Now add technology. Add technology to all of that insecurity that we feel when we're in our teens. So everything that we felt is magnified times 10. So what we need to do is help our kids through it, okay? There's a huge thing that is going on right now, which is the biggest problem that teens are facing today. And actually, we all feel it because I have felt it too. Social comparison. Now, this happens because we are comparison creatures by nature. Now, when we understand why we do things, everything makes sense. So where does this come from? Why are we comparison creatures? Well, how do we position ourselves in a tribe, in a hierarchy, in a community if there isn't levels? So there needs to be a hierarchy. This is why we tend to compare ourselves so that we can know where we're at. Whether it's in school, whether it's in a community, whether it's at work, we need that, right? But what happens? Since our brain is primarily negative, since we have that negative bias that is also in there to protect us, this is thousands years old. We're dealing with a mechanism that is thousands years old, guys, okay? So what happens? We needed that to protect ourselves, okay? We needed to be aware. We needed to be alert. So it's negative. But now it doesn't work for us. You see, the brain's going to take a while to evolve till it becomes adapted to our modern world. So we are going to have to help it. So what can you do? We're going to talk about the solutions, but first we're going to go on to the next thing that is a huge problem, which is nutrition. And now let's talk about why is that a problem? The American diet is a huge problem. Okay, sugar is in everything. All of our products contain 30% sugar, so we have to be very careful. And this includes diet products as well. And a lot of products, the products that we have, that if you're in the center of the grocery store, if your diet is not primarily based on vegetables and fruits, then you're going to have a more difficult time. Why? Because all the stuff that's in the center of the grocery store doesn't have a lot of nutritional value. And that's the big problem. So what happens? It doesn't have a lot of nutritional value. So your brain uses 25% of the energy in your body. It uses a lot. And we use our brain a lot throughout the day. So we get hungry fast. We need more food. This is why kids are eating so much, because there isn't a lot of nutritional value, but there's a lot of calories. So we have to find a way to find a little balance when it comes to this. But what is this doing to the teens? Well, it's getting them tired, because think about it. If they're having a lot of snacks, if they're having a lot of stuff that doesn't have brain food, because remember, we got to feed our brain what it needs so that it could be strong, so that it could work and it could be focused. If we're not giving that, it's tired. And so our kids are tired. They're moody. Their mood swings are up and down, because what do? They eat something, they get that little sugar rush, they're up again, and then they go down. So this is another reason why their moods are always up and down and why they're aggressive. I just want to tell you guys about a little study so that you can understand how important nutrition is. So they did a study on rats and they did a study on prisoners. Now, the study on prisoners was the following. They took a section of prisoners, actually the ones that were on death row, and they took away all of the regular food and they gave them only vegetables and fruit. So they put them on a vegetarian diet. By week one, their aggression had decreased by 30%. This proves the studies that have talked about how the food today does cause aggression in teens. And there's several studies on that. If you guys want, I can send you links to all of this information too. So that's why it's very important to try to barter with your kids. And this is what I'm going to talk about in the solutions, but to add more healthy stuff into the diet. So now let's go into the next one, which is number 5. And this one, I should have put this one first because it really is the most important. The studies have shown that sleep is even more important for teens than nutrition. And this is because of their developing brain and because of the fact that the brain uses 25% of our energy. And not only that, teens are in a learning stage where they use their brain a lot because they're in school and because they're learning all these new motor functions and learning all these new skills in life. So the way that the brain processes information is through sleep. And teenagers need more sleep because this is the developing brain. So the average teen needs anywhere from 8 to 11 hours of sleep. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of cycles. We all have cycles, right? You guys have heard of the circadian rhythms, right? Well, there's the ultradian rhythms, and the ultradian rhythms run differently. They run every 90 minutes, and teens have a different cycle. So teens' prime time to sleep is from 12 to like 10 in the morning. So this is why teens have such a difficult time waking up. And this is why I personally don't understand why they've created junior high, which is the age that they need to sleep the most and sleep a little later. Why they make them come in the earliest, because it goes totally against our circadian rhythms. And when we go against our circadian rhythms is when we start having problems with our functioning, when we start feeling crappy. And all of these things is why most of us don't feel good. I know this personally. When I wasn't paying attention to my sleep, to my nutrition, to how much time I was on social media, to exercise, to everything, I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling good. When I began incorporating all of these things, I started noticing the increase in energy in spurs. Like every week, every month, it was a 15 to 20% increase in my energy level. So think about that. Think about if what you or what your team could do if their energy level was higher and they were actually able to be more focused and productive. Okay, so now let's go talk about the solutions. What is it that we can do? What is it that we can do? Now, certain things that we can do with our teens. Okay, I know that a lot of parents feel that they can't make their teens do stuff, right? They can't make their teens do things because they feel like they're already adults and they want to give them their independence, or also because they don't want a problem. They don't want to fight. They don't want another problem, right? So a lot of times we just give in because we don't want to deal with it. But this is what I want you guys to pay attention to, okay? If you guys, this is a time that they're learning and they're building habits and skills. If in this time you don't teach them these habits, if you don't help them see how important them getting a good night's sleep. So I know that technology is really big and the kids want to be on it till really late. Okay, there are a lot of homes that have rules that say, well, after 10 or 11, you know what? All electronics are off. A lot of parents even take the phones away at night. You know, you don't want to be that strict. Well, then maybe negotiate with your kid. Explain to your kid how the brain works and why it is that they're feeling this way, and explain to them that you want to give them a privilege, but understand that with privilege and responsibility comes consequences. So if your teen takes a certain action, okay, if your teen decides that he's going to go to bed late, if your teen decides he's going to eat junk food, right? If he decides that he's not going to exercise, that he's not going to clean his room, that he's not going to do the things that you ask him to do, then tell him that's okay. That's okay because you're an adult and you can do this, but you're going to have to accept the responsibility. You know, these are the things that you're going to have to do. And these are the things that you're going to pay for if you don't do these things. So what are you going to pay for? Well, you're going to be tired the next day. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to be able to concentrate. You're going to be depressed. Explain to your teen that, you know, he's depressed, that he's not feeling good, that he's tired, but that he has control, that he has some control. You see, what happens is we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Imagine that, 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. If we do not learn how to control our thoughts, if we do not learn how to start controlling what it is that we do, for example, being strict with ourselves, teaching teens, look, I know you want to stay late, but me teaching you the responsibility of doing things that you want to do because they're good for you is what's going to make you a successful adult in life. You want to help your teen so that he's able to self-sustain and self-regulate himself as an adult. So think of your teen these first 18 years as a life learning school, okay, as a life learning experience boot camp. So it is your job in a way to, yes, to persuade your child and to convince him. You see, this is the thing, as parents, we take two positions, right? We think that we have to tell our kids what to do, or we just have to let them be. And we forget that children are like everyone else that we deal with. Children are a relationship just like every other relationship we have. When you want someone, let's say that you are in sales and you want someone to buy the product you have, or you want to sign someone with your coaching program, you want to persuade someone to do what you want them to do, right? What do you have to do? You're not going to make them, you're not going to scream, you're going to say, well, if you don't do this, then I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to take this away. That's why punishing and taking things away doesn't really work. But what does? Negotiating. Bartering has been around since the beginning of time. Bartering has been around even before there was language. So what you want to do is you don't want to get into a control battle with your child. Okay, you want to negotiate with your child. So you want to explain to your child that all of these things are necessary for him. For example, nutrition. So talk about the snacks. So you can't completely take something away from a person, and I understand this because I'm not a practicing vegetarian right now because I've been moving in a lot of changes. But I was a vegetarian for 2 years, and I regularly do not eat meat. It's if I get invited or a special occasion. But when I became a vegetarian, it took a while. It was very difficult, and getting off the sugar craving was even more difficult for me than even getting off the medication. So understand that it's going to be really difficult, and your kids are going to fight you. They're not going to want to do it. So what you're going to have to do is negotiate with them. So say, how about this? How about if we try Monday through Friday, we try to eat really healthy, try not to have snacks, try not to eat after a certain time. Because if teens eat after a certain time, if they eat after 10, 11 o'clock at night, then it's only more difficult for them to get to sleep. Remember, their brain is still very active. It's different from the adult brain. Our adult brain goes to sleep much earlier. Theirs is still active. Remember, I told you their prime time, okay, is from midnight, 1 a.m. That's their prime time to go to bed. So this is why they're going to fight you to go to bed. This is why they want to eat, because their brain is on alert. It wants food. This is why you have to feed them something really healthy and very sustainable earlier, so they'll be able to they'll be able to self-regulate themselves and, not give into that impulse of snacking. This is why moms, a lot of you guys have told me, my kid just wants to eat the entire house. He just won't stop. I can't afford this. This is another reason. This will help you too. And if you want, you guys can join our network. I have a lot of moms who talk about nutrition and how they deal with it with their kids. And it was very difficult in the beginning, because it is. But there's things that you can do. There's a lot of things that you can do. So negotiate with them. Say, okay, Monday through Friday, hey, we're not going to eat snacks, and we're going to do something really special on Friday. So if you have more than one kid, then let each kid pick a different day. Or you know what? Take them to the grocery store and let them get snacks on the weekend. Let them get their fill. And you know what's going to happen? There's a couple of things that are going to happen when you do these things. You see, the reason why we want to persuade our kids into doing the things that are good for them is because we're teaching them skills at the same time. So what are the skills that you're learning? Okay, you're learning the skill of delayed gratification. Now, this is something we all deal with, okay? Imagine when you were young. Imagine now as an adult what you go through, all the temptations we have. How many times do we give in? How many times do we ourselves give in? Because we weren't taught, Right now we live in a world of binging. Everything is instant. You understand? So even for us, it's difficult. Imagine for teens, because, 20 years ago, you had to wait. You had to wait 1 week to see the next episode in your favorite show. My God, we even had to wait for mail, guys. We had snail trail. So imagine how spoiled teens are when it comes to technology. Everything is instant. So of course, teens are acting more ungrateful, than teens before. It's because of the modern world. You have to understand the world they live in. You have to put yourself in their shoes. And when you understand, and when you put yourself in their shoes, then you understand why your child is behaving the way he is, and you have to help him through it, because he doesn't understand why he's depressed. He doesn't understand that the same things that he loves, technology, being on the phone, not going to eat, not going to bed, eating junk food, all of these things, not exercising, not cleaning his room, all of these things are the things that are making him feel crappy, that are making him depressed. So your job is to show him and to help him see that if he makes these little changes, okay, if he makes these little changes and he works with you, okay, if he's able to delay gratification, if he's able to, put a time frame on some of the stuff he does, if he's able to, exercise a little bit, participate in activities, do things that, although he doesn't feel like it, but he knows are good for him, you're not only going to be helping him now, but you're going to be helping him for the future. These are skills that you're going to be setting for life. Delayed gratification will help him in the future, will help him with his relationships. I mean, think about it. We wonder why our teens act a certain way, right? Well, it's because it starts right now. If you help your teen, let's say that your teen learns how to not eat snacks, right? Or from Monday to Friday, no snacks, right? Or no eating after 10 o'clock, right? Well, think about it. When he builds and he strengthens this muscle, when he starts having relationships and he's 17, he's 18, and he gets in a fight with his girlfriend, or she gets in a fight with her boyfriend or boyfriend, whatever, they're going to be able to regulate themselves. They're going to be able to control themselves. Even with you guys, when you guys have a discussion, they're going to be able to be more level-headed. Why? Because they practice these skills in other things. You see, that's what I love about personal development, because these things stack on top of the other. Okay. And now one thing that I want you to remember, moms, one thing that I want you to remember, moms and dads, most important, this is the holy grail of parenting. Okay. This is the holy grail of parenting. Don't react, no matter what your teen does. Don't react. Don't react, because you think you don't have control, but you do. Because you have control over your mood, you have control over what you say, you have control over the attitude that you have and that you bring into the table, and the level of energy. If you always maintain yourself in a certain state, and believe me, guys, I know this is difficult. This is something that we should not only practice with kids, we should practice in all our relationships, okay? We should practice in all our relationships. Every time that we're gonna deal with someone, okay? Try not to react. Always think, okay, why is this person saying this? If we don't like it, why is this person saying this, right? Try to understand them. Try not to react. Try to put yourself in their place. And I'm going to tell you something else. If there's nothing good about it, I don't care if it's your kids, this is what you're going to do. You're going to say, you know what? I'm a little upset right now, and I don't want to be upset. And I don't think that I should say anything when I'm not feeling good. So I'm not going to have a conversation right now. I'm going to wait till I feel better, and then we're going to come back to this, okay? Stop the conversation. If you can't control yourself, stop the conversation. You have control. You're the parent. You have control. And you know what? If your kid is screaming and shouting and disrespecting you, you have control. If your kid wants to stay in his room and won't talk to you and locks the door, you have control. You have control, because if you remain one way, if you say, you know what, I'm going to wait till you feel better. Okay. And when you feel better, and when you're ready, and when you've thought about what you're feeling and what it is that you want, okay, because I'm here for you. When you understand that this is not a dilemma with your kids, okay, this is a team. This is a workmanship. This is a partnership that you guys have. Okay, this is not you and your kid. This is a team, and you have to let your kid know that you want the best for him, and that this is why you implement these rules. This is why you want to create these changes. And even if your kid is on medication, this is why I took medication for many years. Okay, and the problem with medication is that, yes, it starts helping, but after a while, it stops helping. And even if it helps, it only helps a little bit. But then we forget that we have to do the work, because you don't want to be on medication for the rest of your life. Because what happens with medication is, after a while, it doesn't work and you have to up it. And this was the problem that I had. I was always having to up my medication until I got to a point that I felt like a zombie. I couldn't function. And I'm sure that a lot of you have children that are not feeling good, that are not feeling themselves. And this is the reason. So this is another reason why you have to tell your child, I know you're depressed. I know you don't want to do these things. I know your body doesn't want to do it, but this is why you have to fight it. This is why you have to do it, okay? Because this is the result. This is the end result. You see, something that they don't teach us in life is that we have to help ourselves. Nobody can help us. Even you as a parent, there is only so much that you can do. Children have to help themselves too. We have to help our children be self-sustainable. We have to help our children help themselves. So you see, that's what comes along with the responsibility. So if you want to give your child more responsibility, if you want to give your child more independence and more freedom, well, then this comes tagged along with it. Understand that you have to explain to your child that along with adulthood, independence, and responsibility comes things that you have to do that you're not going to like, but it's part of adulthood. It's necessary, and it's what's going to make you feel good. Understand that the pill is short term. It's not going to fix the problem because it's only a band-aid. Explain to your child that if you want to get to the root of the problem, you and your child are going to have to work together to fix it. Okay, I hope that this live today has helped you guys. I am going to be adding some stuff later on for you guys to download if you want to review it later on today. And if you guys have any questions, please contact me, send me a message. If you guys like, I'm going to be adding a link to a couple of courses that I feel will help you and will help your teen. There's a couple of stuff that you guys can work on as a family to help your child become the strong, healthy, independent adult that you want, right? So with that, I'm going to let you guys go. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. And for those of you that I do not see, have a fantastic rest of your week. Goodbye. Talk to you guys soon.